Okay, love. So before we get into the content for today's episode, which is absolute fire, I have something live happening that is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And I want to make sure those of you who are listening to this episode fairly soon, around the time it comes out, know about it. So, February 27th, 2025, I am leading a live group hypnotherapy session. I am a certified hypnotherapist, and this session is designed to rewire your subconscious for whatever that exact thing that's been feeling out of reach is. So, you get to customize this according to something that you've been wanting, and it just feels like it's right there, but you haven't been able to reach it. It could be more money, a certain amount of money, a lucrative business, just more ease in your life day to day, more confidence, love, a relationship. It could be a specific weight, like bodily health, a bodily goal, more success without burnout. Whatever it is, you bring that to the session. And we are going to lock it in at the identity level so that it actually sticks. We are going to be communicating big things to your subconscious mind. And once you do that, it gets the message and it begins to shift and it begins to fire different parts of your brain in a different way than it was before. This is deep subconscious reprogramming that literally shifts how you think, feel, and operate. So you stop getting stuck in the same spot and start seeing real, tangible change according to something that you've been wanting. There's no forcing, there's no pushing, just pure rewiring for effortless expansion. So here's what you need to know. The session is happening live on February 27th. Okay. I'll give you the link for all the details. Go to allycasazza.com/hypno, HYPNO, allycasazza.com/hypno. Okay. Their early bird pricing is gone, but you can still get it at a discounted rate before it jumps up to full price. Seats are super limited. This is a very intimate, small group experience so that everyone's getting the most powerful experience possible. And then everyone who joins is going to get the audio recording to use over and over again for deeper neural rewiring. So this is huge. And let me be super clear. I've never done anything like this before. This is new. I really want you to be a part of this with me. allycasazza.com/hypno, HYPNO. Go get the details and I will see you there. I'm super excited about this. Enjoy today's episode. Okay. Well, welcome to Business Energetics. You are my first ever official guest.
Oh, really?
I've had only solo episodes on this show up until this point.
How exciting. Well, what an honor. We love being first.
We love being first. Number one. I'm just so looking forward to sharing your expertise and your energy with these women. Can you share about your personal journey with money and how you became who you are and this passionate about? I mean, I feel like what you do is you help others receive abundance. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jocelyn Kelly Reid, and I am a feminine business strategist, meaning all the money without the grind, and a wealth activator. And yes, I have a very interesting journey, an atypical journey with money, being that I feel like most people's journey is kind of like, okay, I like didn't grow up with money and then I made it. And we see why, that is an impressive journey. But what's really interesting about mine is like, I actually did grow up well off and I still managed to financially destroy myself. My dad was like the rags to riches story in my family. So I think what's really interesting because, they say that even generational trauma, I forgot who wrote the book, but it goes back, it's either like 7 to 13 generations, something like that, where it still lives in your field. And so even though I grew up in like, yes, they were financially stressed when I was younger, but like, there was nothing that my parents like taught me about money, modeled about money that would have made me go in the direction that I did. I think some of it was just like my life path, what I'm here to teach in this lifetime. And I think that a lot of it was generational. So I like grew up in Piedmont, California. I went to great schools. I went to Ivy League school. I got worked in finance. I like had the boyfriend. I was like doing all the things. I was on like your basic B path, to like buying a house, two kids, the cars, whatever. And then I all of a sudden I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was working for BlackRock, which is like a huge investment management firm. And I was there for 7 years and I was literally just like living life. You know what I mean? Nothing, I wasn't into personal development. I wasn't seeking spirituality. I was like raving, partying, and working.
Mm-hmm.
And I all of a sudden, and what's interesting is it coincided with my Saturn return, but I didn't know what a Saturn return was. And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, it was literally it almost felt overnight. I had like broken up with one boyfriend and had reconnected with a guy that I had like been on and off with in college. And I was going to LA all the time. And I don't like cold weather. And San Francisco was like foggy and I was just like not into it. And I thought that was all it was. I was like, oh, I just want to live somewhere warmer. But all of a sudden, I like didn't want the job. I was like not into that relationship. I didn't want to live in San Francisco. I was like over all of it. And I just one day picked up and like moved to Los Angeles and then I was involved with somebody else by the time I got there. Anyway, but I had met him when I was already like on the way down there. He's part of the story. So I moved to Los Angeles with no plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no job. And like, because I'd always been in a great job, I hadn't really had to, and I was making finance money, but not like spending an enormous amount of money. And so I'd never really had to think about money before. I had
Hmm.
not had to think about money before. And all of a sudden I wasn't making any, right? But I still need to pay rent and I still need to live. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then it's like there, um, my Pluto line actually runs through Los Angeles, so it was always going to be deep, dark, and dramatic. But I did not know anything about astrocartography before I got
Yeah.
there. So basically, what happened is like I moved to LA, and all my trauma, all of my stuff just like surfaced. I got super codependent with this guy. I became addicted to psychics, not surprising in Los Angeles. I burned through all of my money, quite literally, in my addiction, including my 401k, like all my investment money, all my cash. I burned through everything and also managed to acquire $100,000 in tax debt because I didn't put enough aside when I took the money out, even though I knew to. I worked in finance, but like my brain was operating like the brain of an addict. Like
Right.
I was having, and then at this exact same time, I had a really intense like psychic awakening. And again, I wasn't spiritual, so I wasn't looking for this. So I was hearing voices. I was like hearing things that are much further away than what you should be able to be here. I was having premonition dreams about him, like down to the T, like if he was going to meet some, because we weren't like in a committed, we were like very back and forth. He was definitely like my toxic twin flame that like opened me up to all my stuff that I needed to look at.
Hmm.
Down to like when he was going to meet someone, what she was going to look like, what would happen in their relationship. He would come back. I mean, it was like a play. I was dreaming a play by play of our relationship, which is like a lot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And then also, my own gifts were being activated, but I wasn't like looking for them. And I was just a mess. And the way finally I figured out I wanted to move into the interior design world, and I did. So I was like making money again, but I had created not nearly enough to like take care of the storm I had created. And I still wasn't better. So even when I wasn't involved with him, which that wrapped up because I finally had a dream. This went on for years. This whole phase of my life was 5 years. This was not a few months.
Okay.
So I dreamt about him and the woman that he's married to now, which is funny because she has my same last name. And I remember being like so annoyed. I was like, oh, I was the one on the way there with the same last name. How annoying. And she's like a pretty successful actress, and I didn't know like what I wanted to do. So I was just so triggered at the time because I was so lost, and she was very like established in her career. Um, there is a show I have not watched that's very popular. Now I wouldn't care. But at the time I didn't watch it because she's on it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I dreamt about like their engaged, like I saw them both with gold rings on their fingers, and I was like, oh, he's gonna like be with her. I need to move on. So that was enough for me to move on, even though like he was still doing stuff, you know, when he was dating her, he should not be doing, like trying to get in contact with me and stuff. But I did like stop and move on. But I then just created the same pattern, not as extreme, but the same patterns with other people and or other men. And it all just finally culminated. I had a health crisis. So I had, my anxiety was at a 10. I wasn't really sleeping. I was only kind of eating. Like I was just a fraction of a human. Like I was operating completely at the surface. And then all of a sudden I had a period that would not go away. Actually, it kept happening and I was ignoring it. And
Mm.
then I got a period that literally did not go away. And then I discovered I had fibroids and I had to have open surgery. I had 37 fibroids. It was basically like having a C section without having a baby.
Yeah.
And in the time, so I could not work. And then, oh, actually, I got fired. Then there was like so many things. I got fired twice during that whole journey.
Just like a really peachy time.
And yeah, it was like amazing. And then it was fine because I couldn't work it, and then I was sick and I couldn't work anyway. But that was enough for me because you'd think the money stuff would wake me up. It didn't. The man stuff would make me up. It didn't. But there was something about my health. I'd always been like active. I never had health issues. Having my health on the line, I was like, this isn't normal for me. That woke me up to like something is wrong. And with him
Yeah.
kind of like out of my field, and because I was literally laying on my sofa for a couple months bleeding, and they were trying to get me to stop bleeding so I could have surgery. And I had nothing to do, and I wasn't working. So I had nothing to do but sit with myself by myself and be like, how did we get here? Like,
Yeah.
how did we get here? And then I just found, and I had done things like I had read like Gabby Bernstein's book. I don't remember what it was. That first one she was pretty famous for, Spirit.
Uh, yeah. Spirit junkie.
Spirit. Yeah, that didn't
Yeah.
do anything for me. And then, like, I mean, I'm not, this is not a knock on her. I'm just being honest about what occurred.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was trying to do
You
like,
were in a bad place.
I was in a bad place. Like, Abraham and Esther Hicks or whatever it is, like being in the vortex, like that doesn't work when you're loaded with trauma. And
Yeah.
then I found Louise Hay, and I would just listen to, because you know how she
Mm.
cured herself from cancer naturally. And she just woke me up to the message of, I realized that like I was in the driver's seat and that if I had manifested myself into this, well, I could manifest myself out.
Yeah.
And there was something about, even though I was in such a low place, knowing that I was in the driver's seat that like helped me pull it together. And eventually I got better. And I had wanted to move to New York for like a year. I was able to come up with the money to do that. I got to New York. And then before I got a real job in New York, and then there was still like paycheck, New York's expensive. It was still
Of
paycheck to
course.
paycheck.
Yeah.
But, it was like we were on our way slowly to sort of getting better, but debt not going anywhere. And I remember sitting down before I got that job, and I was like, I had no idea. I had this weird, I didn't grow up being like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even think about it. My dad was, but I didn't really think about it. And, but I had this weird moment before I got my last job where I was like, this is the last job I'm ever going to take. I remember sitting on the
Mm.
sofa, like looking out at these pretty bay windows, looking out the snow. And that just hit me. And I was like, okay. And then I started taking my healing more seriously and addressing my codependency and just all my stuff. And I was just, it's like as the layers were unraveling, I was starting to find out more about myself. When you're in a trauma response to life, you're just living under the cloud, right? So
Mhm.
you can't see clearly. But as I started to get emotionally healthier, which definitely was not overnight. But as it started to happen, I started to see more available to myself. And I read Elaine Welteroth's book called like More Than Enough. And I remember closing that book. I remember closing the book and being like, I'm never playing small again. There was something about seeing what she created from like nothing and I was like, it was one of those like, well, if she can do it, I can do it moments, which is what we all want to inspire in people, right?
Right.
And I just started being like, I remember I was on a trip with my aunt, and she had been like a big exec at Coca-Cola, and she was doing basically like executive coaching. And she was telling me about everything she was doing. And I had had like 15 years of sales and marketing experience. I kind of skipped over some of my career stuff in LA, but like
Yeah.
between BlackRock and everything I was doing there and in New York, I was always in sales and marketing. And the stuff that she was saying, I was like, I know these things. And then I like manifested this opportunity with a friend that I had used to work with, and it was like advising her company. They wanted to open a showroom, and I just remember they paid me my New York rent for like a few hours of my time. And it was so pleasurable. Yes, I built a presentation and stuff like that, but all I did was show up and like share my brain.
Mm.
And there was something about getting paid my New York rent in a few hours versus the grind that I was in that just woke me up to like, oh, I have things to offer the world. And then ultimately, I didn't really want to work directly with businesses. I wanted to help individual people, but still in the business realm.
Right.
And then I was invited to be, do you know who Lacey Phillips is? She has a
Yeah.
brand to be magnetic. So I had been
Mhm.
doing her work, and I had a friend who was connected to her, and I was invited to be on her show just to talk about my manifestations and what I had created and how I had healed and just the things that, how the work was benefiting me. And it was funny because I had written down that I wanted to be on that show, but I didn't have a reason. Like there was something
Yeah.
in me that just, how like you just want things sometimes you don't know why. And it makes
Mhm.
sense in the end. And that was a big deal for me. Now I podcast all day long, right? But at the time, sharing my story and being vulnerable, like really created that. Just like I had a vulnerability hangover. And it was amazing because like at the time she was still more running her show. And so she was in New York and we did it in person. And after that, I mean, maybe like 100 women reached out to me just to be like, wow, your story is really inspiring. And like, all of these different things. And I was like, oh, like, you know, people are interested in my story. Like, I didn't know that they would be, right? Then I was
Right.
like, okay, well, if these women are interested, other people will be interested. And I have something to offer. And I wasn't thinking at that time, like, oh, I'm not far enough along yet, which I think people do a lot. And it really slows them down in their business journey in terms of thinking they can help other people. I just kind of went for it, and I got on the internet and I was like, just, I was at this point a lot more spiritual, connected, more tapped into my gift where it wasn't overwhelming me. Um, and I was just like speaking about manifestation and energetics and things that I was feeling going on in the collective and all these different things. And like, I just went after it. And, my first 10K month was like 60 days in. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, why am I in this job? This doesn't make sense. The universe is making the job complicated. Like I was making
Mhm.
more money in my business than the job, but I was more focused, didn't have enough time for the business. And so I quit my job at the end of 2019 and, you know, and COVID started, right? In January of 2020, January, February, whatever it was. So that was good timing because being in a job would have been a nightmare. Um,
Mhm.
but I was like, I had nothing else to do but scale my company and like people needed help. And then I just really started being able to connect money to my purpose, money to receiving, and like stop making money. Like I remember thinking, because there's been so many different phases of how I've interacted with money, because I went from there and now I have like a multi-million-dollar company, but I remember so how it's looked at every expansion and just honestly every edge. Like I'm an entrepreneur, you invest a lot of money, there's always an edge. I moved into a multi-million-dollar home, like making big investments, all these different things has looked different. But I remember at the time just thinking like, okay, well, if I'm in my purpose, in order for me to be in my purpose and to be of highest service, I have to be supported spiritually, financially, emotionally, because that's what's of greatest service. Yes, of course, to me, but also to this planet. And I was put on the planet for this.
Mhm.
So playing a small game financially does not make sense. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is we aren't really, when we have to worry about money all the time, all you do is worry about money. When money is a problem, you don't forget it. It's inside of, and I know how that feels. I was like in positions of do I buy food or pay for gas? Like I get
Mm.
it, where and then sometimes that was very extreme. Then I was more stabilized, but it was just still that, oh, can I do this, can I do that, ooh, rent's due, ooh, this, ooh, fuck, I need to start paying off this debt. And just I was
It's
so,
constant, and it takes like all your mental and emotional energy.
like, literally all of it. And you can
Yeah.
like be positive, do whatever. You just can't forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't forget it, right? So, I realized I was like, and this sounds a little crazy, but I'm like, wow, it's actually kind of selfish of me to like stay in this place because then
Mm-hmm.
all I'm doing is thinking about money instead of like supporting the world.
Mm.
So therefore, it's like of service of me to get my shit together and build a better relationship.
And I think that plays so well into the issue that so many women have of like feeling like they're not deserving.
Yeah.
Not only are you deserving just because you are, but like you said, it is literally for the betterment of the world, of society, of the collective, for you to be fully taken care of and supported.
Of you, of your family, and like, how do we need any more lessons of the government is not coming to save you? No one's
Right?
coming to save you. No one, right? And so, like, I've just seen so many, people will think it's going to be the job. Well, then COVID happened, all these people got fired, right? Then it's like it's going to be somehow the government's going to come through. Well, when was the last time we saw that happen? Then
Right.
it's like, okay, I'll marry a rich man. Then I can't tell you how many clients I've had who then got divorced from said rich man, knew nothing about money, was not set up appropriately in their legal agreement, getting married or getting divorced, and they're back on the floor,
Yeah.
or got fully taken advantage of because they outsourced they didn't know anything about money, outsourced everything to the man that they were with. I've heard this so many times. Women even who had successful businesses, and he burned through all of her money
Mm.
and she didn't even know what was going on. And then, they end up in a divorce and they're not fighting over equity, they're fighting over debt.
Mm.
So, and this isn't to make us like paranoid, but it's like you really owe it to yourself to be a well-resourced woman, and it needs to become like non-optional.
Yeah. I love that. I'm curious, like, to hear how you would phrase this. Tell me about the difference in your mind between, like, I feel like when we talk about receiving versus earning, like, earning has
Oh
this, like,
gosh.
I'm pushing and I'm forcing and I'm getting. But I want to hear you explain this to these women, that the difference between receiving abundance, receiving money, and letting it come in versus doing something to make it come and to earn it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's the very natural like aligned action. If you have a company, you're going to be like doing things, right?
Sure.
But just from an energetic perspective, because that then informs the actions and informs the energy we bring to them and yada yada. But literally just the energetic side, it's like whenever you have to push, like you're eventually going to break. It is not sustainable. Hustling your way into success, like we've seen this modeled a lot, right? All of these women who come out after they've made their millions, like remember Ariana Huffington and she of the Huffington Post, and she like
Sure.
fell to the floor and then collapsed in her office from working so much. And how many stories have you heard where later they come out and tell you how bad it was?
Yeah, that's my story. It's
Yeah.
like you push and then you're like, fuck, I'm not physically okay.
Yeah. And it's like, we're not doing that. So I'm always talking about wealth without the cost. But
Mm,
that
love that.
also, when we're in that energy, you're actually moving from a place of lack, but you're calling it hard work. Like, oh, I'm working hard for the money. Like, this is what we do, right? But it's actually lack driven because
Mm,
if you are, and I don't, I actually talk about, and like, we don't even need to play with deservingness and money, limiting beliefs in money, all of this stuff that spiritual women spend so much time on, yet never get rich,
mm,
right? I'm like, it doesn't even need to be that deep. You will be searching because if you want to play the limiting belief game, well, there's gonna be new one tomorrow, new one tomorrow, new one tomorrow. Like our brains operate with a level of negativity bias. You
yes.
cannot control your brain through trying to pick apart your brain's thoughts. Like that is going to be a lifelong game. And then the deservingness thing is very intangible. Do you think that no millionaire woke up one morning and was like, I deserve to be a millionaire? Like that's just not the conversation. You know what I
Mm,
mean? So I also feel like it's a go nowhere game that a lot of people play in personal development. And I didn't focus on that. To me, the receiving conversation was more like it is your abundance is a state of being, right?
mm,
So it's like if you choose to, and you will more naturally create it when you actually just, so a lot of times what's making us not feel good about ourselves or not deserving or playing lack is what we're entertaining. So I so quickly saw the connection between love and money as an example. When I
Mhm.
would stop dating men who weren't good for me because they were draining my energy, I would just immediately make more money in my company.
Yeah.
Right? Sort of like a lot of women, they stop dating the guy and all of a sudden they lost 30 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So it's like so we will have these energetic drains all around us and we're not focused on them. We're going to like work hard to try to energetically outrun but it's like we have all these leaks. You can't outrun the leaks. So
Mhm.
for example, on just a normal practical level, it's like, okay, it's like even the small things where it's like, why are you paying for apps you don't use? Why are you
Mhm.
paying to do things you don't want to do? Why did you say yes to going out with your friends or going on this trip when it feels financially draining to you? Why? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, are you even flowing your money from pleasure? Are
Mhm.
you contracting every time that like you need to pay a bill or pay your rent, but like thank God you have this home? So like, do you know what I'm saying? Where it's like
Yeah.
we bring lack to abundance in the places where the money is flowing. We're flowing money, but we actually like into things that we want. I want my internet, don't you? Like I want
Yeah.
my home, right? But then we're leaky with how we flow it in other areas. We are in codependent relationships. We are people pleasing. We are not speaking our full truth. We are not showing up in full power, and then you're like, oh, I'm trying to feel deserving of money. I'm like, maybe you just need to break up with this dude. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you will not feel good about yourself if you don't show up. When you fully honor yourself, you're not going to feel like, oh, I need to feel deserving of money, because you're going to feel solid with yourself because of how you treat yourself and what you engage for yourself.
Everything is so connected. I feel like that's said a lot, but it's kind of like gratitude. It's so overstated and so understood and under practiced. Everything truly is connected, and you're so right. When you break up with the dick, you are like, oh, you're just so much more free and happy and grounded and connected to yourself. And when you're in that state, of course you're connected to abundance, because you are abundant naturally without
Right.
this fucking drain on you all the time.
And the reason is it's like our life force energy is what magnetizes to us.
Mm,
Right? It's our frequency, it's our magnetism, it's our yum. Like you don't miss when someone comes in the room who's confident, secure, right? It's not because of
yeah,
something they said to you, it's because of how they feel, right? So I
right.
always explain like wealth is a frequency. And so for people to understand that difference tangibly, it's like, okay, you feel a difference, but when you stay in a two-star hotel versus a five-star hotel, you feel a difference when you wear scratchy wool versus when you wear cashmere, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel a difference when you drive a Toyota Camry versus when you're in a G Wagon, right? All of that difference is just frequency. It's just energy. You just feel an energetic difference. So when you are entertaining things or showing up in ways that drain your life force energy, it's like having a leech attached to you, pulling your frequency down, 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 down. But what you want is a frequency that is up here, right? So we want to be attuned to the frequency of the cashmere, of the G Wagon, of the five-star hotel, of flying private, whatever, right? Well, you have to elevate. You know, when you walk into a nice hotel, how that feels, right? That's
Yeah.
an energy. So we are going to attract, like from the point of which we are vibrating. But the thing is, it's not about sitting around meditating about money, right? It's about like, well, what is keeping me out of alignment with being in that frequency? And also even how I move. So it's like, well, I want to make money like so and so, but are you making moves like so and so? Are you investing money like so and so? Are you showing up in your business like so and so? Not as a carbon copy of like how they do business, but with like the conviction, with the consistency, with the power, with the prices, with the creativity, with whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, and inside so many success stories, there's so much risk taking, and people want to get rich without taking risks.
Yeah.
I have not met a self-made wealthy person in my entire life who has not had many, 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 many times of taking enormous risks that most people won't take. Like I quit my job 3 months after starting my company. I'm not suggesting most people do that. Like I was all in, but it's like I was investing in myself with $100,000 in debt. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'm my own greatest asset. Who's gonna collapse time on this money faster than me? No one. So like
Absolutely.
I was moving, but people don't take, and it's like my first container, even that for coaching was like $12,000. I was on a payment plan, but most people be like, oh, my debt. And I'm like, is debt your daddy? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's a big part of it too, is like beyond, it's like, yeah, sure, self worth, but also like, you want to be a millionaire, show up like one.
So this brings me to a question, because you mentioned a bit ago, like about limiting beliefs, and like there's always going to be a new limiting belief and all of that. And oh my gosh, I so agree. I'm curious, like when we talk about this and like debt and risk, and I think that all of this lack of action and the action they are taking, which is out of fear and lack and to
But
not
then it
move
doesn't
forward.
create
So
anything. Yeah.
right. So they're like all of that is because they have these limiting beliefs around who they are, what they're capable of, whatever. So what do you teach entrepreneurs when it comes to these limits and it comes to this bullshit and these stories, these narratives? Like, how do you coach people in releasing these blocks, releasing these beliefs, whatever you want to call them?
I mean, it really depends. I mean, I have so many different containers. Like there are containers where we do kind of like more of that like healing journey and it's
Yeah.
more energetic. But like overall, it just depends. You know what I mean? But overall, to me, it's like, who do you want to be? Because nobody's ever going to change this but you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In very short form for a podcast, it's like you can play your self serving story that keeps you right here so you can keep complaining about being right here, or we can choose something different. Like at the end of the day, it is always going to have to be that moment. There was
Mm.
no magic that occurred that made me decide to go. There was no like one, it was like the moment was like, I'm done playing small. You're going to
Yeah.
have limiting beliefs at every level. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, the thing is you have to recognize that you will need to choose to come back into your power. And of course, like I believe in the healing work. Like I have a container of feminine magic and money. We do quantum healing. We do quantum manifestation. We do feminine receiving. And it's all like kind of like energetic and body based. Like I definitely believe in those things. And they move mountains. I've seen women create like the extraordinary, right? But I've also seen it in containers that are more energetic where we're not doing that. I've seen it everywhere. But a
Yeah.
lot of it is like get in the room and be around people operating at a higher level of frequency so that you can normalize that, because the more you're around it, the more normal it will feel to you. And then you will get tired of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like you will just be like, okay, well, do I want to spend my life fighting for limitations, or do I want to just see, like, the way that I think about it is like, I am here to live a limitless life. I want to, and not because it's like, oh, I'm the queen, I'm holier than thou, but from literally a place of, I desire to have the experience of a life without limitation. If I'm going to
Mhm.
incarnate on planet Earth, which is full of earthly pleasures to enjoy, why wouldn't I set myself up to enjoy all of them? But the thing is, we have to take the urgency out. We have to take out, like, how long is it going to take? We got to take out, like, we'll think about the destination and then how many steps, and it'll feel overwhelming. And you forget that, like, every single thing that has ever been built of significance, it's always like you don't lose 30 pounds in 24 hours. But if you
Yeah.
just stay focused, all of a sudden you're fit as fuck in 6 months.
Yeah.
But the thing is like we undervalue like this today. We undervalue today, and like we don't like just pick up the mic and start the podcast. Get on the internet and just start talking. And of course, like I teach business. So ultimately I'm like, okay, we need to work on your positioning, we need to work on packaging. Like there's a lot of like strategic things that obviously make the wheels turn. But when it
Mhm.
comes to starting, I'm like, just start. And it's like, whose team do you want to be on? Like the team of like limiting beliefs or the team of forward movement? Because you're
Mhm.
picking a team every day, you
Yeah.
know?
I love that. I love the balance in your answer of like the energy and the strategy, the masculine and the feminine, because everything that we want is on the other side of consistency, but nobody's fucking consistent. And I think the key for me, at least, to consistency has been what you said: getting in the room with other people who are showing up, who are at this new level, who are being consistent, who are, they're just operating at a higher level. And then when you get in your old bullshit, you have so much more self-awareness that like this is just, it's so contrast to who you're hanging out with, because they're at this other level. They're the G-Wagon and you're in a fucking Camry. Like
You're like,
you
what?
notice it.
No.
Why am I acting like this? Yeah.
And if that raises insecurity, right? Because for some people, it'll be like, whoa, expanded moving, right? And then for others, it could be like, ooh, right? Like it can kind of like trigger insecurity, even
Yeah.
though it's intended to be expansive. But then I'm like, okay, well, let's like use that. So you're insecure for a reason. You're not insecure because of the Camry. You're insecure because of where you're not showing up that's keeping you there, where you're not showing up for yourself. Where, do you know what I mean? It's not because of the fact that so and so makes so much money. It's because they're just reflecting back to you, one, what you're capable of, or you wouldn't even notice. Like, you're only going to notice things where like you do actually want that too, and you only want it because your soul is asking for it because it's inside of you. Maybe not the physical thing, but you know what I mean? The qualities of the woman, like whatever it is, because there's going to be lots of people, for example, making money. Some you won't even notice. And there will be others where you're like, okay, she's got my attention. That's for a reason. Get close to her. Right. But it's also like, okay, cool. If insecurity comes up, instead of making feeling bad a problem and making it feel like we're slowing ourselves down, it's like glean the information. Why? So what is this? Right? Because it's not a limiting belief. I guarantee you it's some way that you're showing up or not, or some like for yourself, in relationship, in your company. And then it's like, we always want to take the path of ease. My whole vibe is like ease on top of ease is the standard, right? When I say consistent, we're not, I don't mean, because, you know, it brings up that energy of just like pushing through no matter what. And you're like, oh my God, I can't. And I've seen miracles pop when I wasn't like consistent because something occurred, right? But I had a lot of, we still have months and years stacked of consistency, right?
Right.
So, but I remember like even when I moved in this place and I had my first like 7-figure or 6-figure week, and like I didn't post on social media for a month. I was in stories. So I wasn't being as consistent as normal, but my frequency was so expanded, right? And I had like really like I had like 6 times the amount of my bank account in a matter of months. I had flowed more money than because I had to move like a lot of money to move in here. I had to pay my broker. I was paying for 6 figures in private mentorship. So much, all this money was going out, but I was like, instead of it being in contraction, I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I'm even able to do, I work, because I always talk about, you know, receiving, holding, growing, and flowing as like the 4 ways money likes to move. And it's like there were so many opportunities, right, that I had to be in contraction. Like I remember when I really wanted to up level my home, something happened. I had like some $18,000 thing I had to deal with. It was like business related that I didn't know about. And my account was like, oh, we have to pay it all at once. And I was like, what? And I remember being in contraction. And then I was like, Jocelyn, you want to move. I live in New York. New York's very expensive. If you want a luxury apartment here, it is at least $10,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
So, and had been looking and I was like, well, I don't even like these. So then it was like, okay, you want to be able to pay $15,000 a month in rent, but you're going to like contract over moving 18,000 one time. You are not a match. You are not a match for what you say that you want. And I remember shifting that and I was like, okay, well now I get to practice the art of replenishment. So when I took out all the scarcity and all the stories and was just like, oh, this is supporting me and being a match to what it is that I say that I want, then I made the money back in like 7 days. But the problem is, and people do this when they invest in themselves too, they bring lack to abundance, or they outsource, they want all the energy to occur just in taking the action. So let's say, you know, you go to invest in something in yourself and people, they're like, oh, yay, they're excited. I'm like, but then did you go into lack right after? Then did you know what I'm saying? You can't, it's not a 1 second thing. It's like, are you someone who stays neutral with money and has an abundant mindset and sees how this is preparing you for your next level at all times, no matter what? Because as an entrepreneur, you're going to blow through money. There's going to be stuff where you put money and you're like, why in God's name did I do that? But you're going to learn something. There's going to be investments that make you so much money. You just need to be okay with having a very fluid relationship with money if you want to be a successful self-made human.
I love that perspective. How do you like, I guess like, I hate go-to practices or whatever, but for lack of a better phrase, what are your go-to practices for keeping yourself in a state of abundance? Like after that hit, that $18,000, situation, what if that happened now and you did notice that you were like, oh, I'm contracting, this is like freaking me out? What do you
Yeah.
do to come back to the state of abundance?
I mean, now you grow, right? So now I can just shift. Right now it's not like a big thing. I'm just like, oh,
Right.
there that is, like goodbye. But
Love. Obsessed.
and this is the power of growth, guys. I know that I sound empowered, but please understand. Like
Yeah.
it was this is by doing the work, right? So for example, I my kind of like foundational money program is called the Cash Queen, and there is like loads of like excerpt, guided journeys, like meditations, like different abundance chants. Like I was really doing stuff like that. I was doing stuff like that up till having like 30K months. Like I needed to connect to an energy bigger than myself.
Mm,
I remember like I would really connect into like Goddess Lakshmi's energy at the time. And she's
okay.
like goddess of abundance. I don't do any of these things now, but I'm just sort of like speaking about my journey.
Yeah, because I
And I
think there's a
literally
lot of
had
women
like
that are back there and they can benefit from you when you were there.
yeah. And so it sounds crazy, but if money is energy, then money is a spiritual matter. Like it shows up in the 3D, sure, but it's largely a spiritual matter. And like we were saying earlier, you don't want to, consistency isn't supposed to be a grind. So for us to get to a place, like I'd rather you be less consistent and more aligned. Because a lot of times the people who are working the hardest aren't necessarily making the most money, or like some of the lowest income people in the country would be the wealthiest, right, who are working around the clock. So we know that's not it. So we need to tap into and in the beginning, right, it's not as easy to just be like, oh, shift into alignment. Like now I can, but I couldn't before. So I needed to connect to something that was bigger than myself. And honestly, that's where like my spiritual connection was really built, because the thing is, it's like you're an infinite being. The quantum field is real. Everything you want already exists, right? Like we see miracles and magic pop all the time. We've all had them in our own life, but you're like, oh, but I haven't had it with money, but you've had it somewhere else, right? So you
Mhm.
know that it's real. Maybe it's just a little bit. Sometimes people have an easier time with it with love. Some people have an easier time with it with money. Sometimes people have a very easy time with like home or travel things, or we all have our things where like they tend to just kind of like align. So then it was like literally learning how to connect into myself and like the energy of the planet and like the energy. I know it sounds crazy, but like of the quantum field, right? Like
Mhm.
expand your energy, because anytime that you feel lack or doubt or scarcity, you're contracted. You never feel open and lack at the same time.
Mhm.
Right. So even things like breast massage, abhyanga, like open up your physical body. I would do like cervix de-armoring. Like so many women carry so much trauma, like in the womb space, right? Like you're tight, you're
Yeah.
contracted in your physical body. And also it's just like, I would literally practice expanding and opening up my energy to like bigger than myself, bigger than the planet, larger, 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 larger.
Mm. That's amazing. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to like, you're girl, you can't just mention like cervix and shit and like not give us resources to start to look into that.
Service Arm is amazing. We do it in Feminine Magic and Money. But
Yeah.
where who did I get my wand from? Yoni Pleasure Palace.
What is happening? I'm
They're
so
in Australia.
excited.
They're in Australia.
Okay.
And yeah, we have women who lead that in Feminine Magic and Money. But basically what the concept is your women's we store trauma in our womb. And that's not crazy, right? Like you live
That
with
no, that
yeah,
makes perfect sense. Yeah.
you were like raised in your mother's body. Like you were
Mm.
not fully raised, but you get my point. She was going
Yeah.
through stuff, her grandma was going through stuff, all the different things. We have sex, we with
Yeah.
people that we shouldn't have sex with. We, even if it
Mhm.
wasn't yesterday, like we
Yeah.
store a lot. So that was really life changing. So basically it's like you go through a journey, you have a wand, and it's just like a very feels safe, like it was changed my life. All the women who do it in my world, like when we get to that portion of the program, are just like, what?
Wow, that's
I have
beautiful.
never experienced anything like this in my life. I have never felt like this in my life. I have never, the thing is like, I believe in modern day medicine women. And I think that a lot of women are having a hard time because we, like, if you're even here for this conversation, there is like, you were probably a witch however many years ago, right? We were the ones who were burned at the stake, like all the different things.
Mhm.
And we've gotten very disconnected with it because this is what the Matrix did, right? This is what the quote unquote church did, was like, you're evil, turn you guys against each other,
Yep.
like crucify you, like you're right. So many women in this journey also go through, like, experience like their witch wound comes up,
Yeah.
where it's like, you start to open up, because when you start to open up, you start to know more. And the reason that this was shut down by society, the patriarchy, whatever you want to call it, is because, like, when you know too much, you're dangerous. When you know too much, you can question the system. When you know too much, you don't rely on the system, you can create for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. And so part of when you ask me kind of what keeps me going too, is I'm like, I refuse to be controlled.
Mm.
Right. And I don't mean by so and so down the block. I just mean the energy of the system that literally intends to keep people small, sick, poor, and controlled.
Yep.
It's a
Absolutely.
power game, right? And power
Mhm.
doesn't have to look like that. But it's like, we need to. So when you feel yourself going into lack and doubt and all of these things, remember, like, beyond your family stories, blah, blah, where that really comes from is like passed down from society intentionally to keep you in your place. And are
Yeah.
you willing, when I think about it like that, instead of, well, my dad did this when I was 4, you know what I mean? When I think about it on that scale, because that's what actually has happened. And then that got passed down to dad, who did whatever when you were 4, right? It's like,
Right.
or said whatever it was. That for me is a lot more motivating, because it's like, oh, we are breaking the paradigm.
Mm.
Like, this is stopping. I didn't incarnate to like live under that energetic imprint for my life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It comes from a place of like, I am creating freedom for myself, for everyone in my lineage, for everyone that was and everyone that will come to be. And it's like, I'm done. I'm not just going to be, oh, I'm going to shift patterns. I'm literally going to break fucking chains and shift the way things are happening. I love
Yeah.
that.
And it's like, why wouldn't you? And the thing
Yeah.
is like, this is why, right, we have, the energetic work and all the, you do subconscious work, all the different things, because it doesn't have to take a long time. I went from $100,000 in debt to my first 100K cash month in 3 years.
Amazing. Fuck
How
yes.
long would it, you know what I mean? That wasn't even I had never in my life considered making that amount of money. It hadn't even crossed
Right.
my field of awareness.
Right.
That's where I'm sometimes like, I don't even know that you need to believe that you can have it to create it, because I wasn't like trying to anchor my belief around it. Like, there was a point where I started getting closer to it. I realized, oh, this is a possibility. And what I
Mm-hmm.
needed to do was not make it available in the world. And I think this happens because I see this with clients. Not so certain levels of success, whatever it is, it's not just available. You get to the point where you're like not really triggered by it being available in the world, but it's like it's available to you.
Mm.
Like,
Yep.
there's a big difference. And it's available to you now. And you don't need to do 45 somersaults to become some version of your higher self who's unrecognizable. You have no idea who the hell she is. Because that's what we do. We keep putting it out in the future. Keep aligning your
Mhm.
future self. Keep aligning your future self. I'm like, who is she even?
Yeah. Now. Be now. It's in
Now.
now and bring it to you now. And it's almost like I feel like a lot of time in the spiritual community we're still giving our power away to the future, to
Exactly.
the like take your like I'm in charge and I command it now.
Now. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, I see this all over the spiritual community. I'm like, now we're like outsourced to money. We're outsourced to the universe. You're outsourced to this guru. Like, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you do in your life, in your business, everywhere should be calling you back to your own power. You have to create. And part of the reason I was saying I expanded my relationship to myself, to the universe, and just like being connected to a higher level frequency other than this 3D plane one, which is pretty dense. We receive through the 3D plane. It's true. But I'm like, but you create out here. You
Yeah.
create out here and it gets delivered down here. Right. So
Mm.
we're in that pushing, and the consistency feels hard. We're playing only on the 3D, and it's heavy because you're an infinite being. You're bigger, your energy, right? Science has shown us energy is real. Like, we are made of energy. So why it's like you're made of energy and you're trying to build with dirt.
Right.
It's heavy,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Instead of allowing yourself to energetically expand. And then what happens is like momentum starts to build as a feeling. Like, haven't you had experiences where like you just feel that like charge in your body and you know things are going to go well because your
Yes.
energy's high, right?
100%. Mm-hmm.
But that we drop that so fast or we don't clock, well, what actually got me into this state so that it's not just up, down, up, down, up, down. Because what we want to do is raise our baseline. We don't want you to just have like peak experiences and then drop to the floor, right? Which is what a lot of us do. We do it with money, right? We just do it in general. We do it with our health. We do it in general. And it's like, but instead, it's like, let's focus on raising the vibrational baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you trying to get to your highest state, it's like, let's just incrementally, like, let's raise the fucking floor,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you kind of are like going up and down a little bit, we aren't crashing.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Yes. That makes so much sense. I feel like I need to link to everything you said, your programs, the yoni situation.
The
Like
yoni situation.
we need all of
It's
it.
amazing.
I've that all of everything that you're saying has like crossed my path before, but just the way that you express things and the way that you explain things is like, that's why I wanted to have you on. Like the way that you express is so beautiful and so relatable. And there's just a different connection there. If somebody was wanting to get into your world and they're like new to all of this, what would you say is like the best kind of like, just start here with you?
To start here on money, I mean, it depends on what you're doing because I also mentor in business too. But if like money is the thing that you're focused on and you really want to start there, and I'll give you a code, I would say my foundational money program that's really going to be good for you if you're like having somatic responses around money, you're feeling shame around money, we're like dealing with debt shame stories, like, you know what I mean? It's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And we're learning to connect to higher level frequencies and unwind the stories and all that. I have a course called the Cash Queen. And miracles and magic happen in there all the time. And if you are more like, you're like, hey, I've got that stuff down, but I'm really looking for like big acceleration versus like building, my baseline. I have a program called Overflow, and those are my most popular on the
Got
money
you. We
side.
will link. I want to link to everything. I want everyone to run to you.
And
I'll
then
reach
if
out
it's
to you and get
more
all that.
business and we're
Yes.
doing feminine business vibes, then send me a message because there's a lot of different angles in between like content and sales. And I do have a low ticket membership called the Secret Money membership, which is only $55 a month. Like, I definitely recommend that. And I say it's to turn the money faucet on. So we do all things like business and money, and you have all my low ticket programs, and we have a Telegram chat, and I'm in there like riffing on different topics, on energetics, things that I'm seeing, what I'm seeing in my business, training. So it feels like an intimate, close space too, but you get to also like hang out at a low ticket price. So
I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Love that. Oh my gosh, friend. Thank you so much. I'm going to give you like a super standard fucking podcast question, but what is the number one thing that you hope listeners hear in this message from you? Like, when it comes to money,
When
what are
it
you
comes
like,
to money,
please take this away from this?
nothing that has happened any day before today matters. And what feels so heavy is that we carry every mistake, we carry every loss, we carry the debt, we carry the time we used to have money, then we burn through it. Like, we carry around our losses. And like, as they say, just like take the L, like, let's move on. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
we can't carry around our bag of rocks and expect to be feeling amazing. And I know it's psychologically challenging. And I just want to say this too, because where I believe all of this like punitive culture we live in, which trains us to think like that, is like, unfortunately, it really starts at school, because it's like, you need to do these things correctly to get an A. So if
Yeah.
you were to get them correctly, you did not get an A. Because think about it, if we were raised differently, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. So you also
Absolutely.
have, right? So you're always taught, it's like, we're terrified from birth. If you don't make the right next move, you will not get to the next level of this like matrix game.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say it's gamified, and it's like, it really shuts down curiosity and the journey and learning and openness to yourself and all of that.
And like, why can't you make mistakes? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
They're
When
not
did
even
that
mistakes.
happen?
Like, why can't you explore and find out for yourself?
I love that. That's so freeing, even just asking that question and
Yeah,
like
it's
looking
like,
at it
let's like
differently.
lower the stakes. Like it's not do or die.
Mm-hmm.
And take away like the shame. You know what I mean? It doesn't belong to you. You were just told to have it.
Yeah,
You know, so
absolutely.
that's what I would say. And I have a podcast as well, Queen Flow the podcast, and I vibe out on business and money all the time there. Allie's gonna come on.
Yes, I am. Hell yeah. Collaboration.
Collaboration. So that's what I would say. It's just, and like, please take it seriously. Don't just like listen to this and be like, oh my God, that was vibey. Like, do
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
Do something. Do not just be someone who just takes in information. Do something.
Yeah. Do something different than you've done before. Old ways do not open new doors. Do something different.
100%.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time and your energy. I adore you. I bet we had a connection call before the interview, and I was like, I'm just gonna like be vibey today and just like go and like get some breakfast, get a mimosa, and like it'll be fine. And then nothing worked. Zoom shut down. It wasn't working. The restaurant I went to like what turned into a club, and there was like Vegas music in the background. I'm talking to Jocelyn on the phone, like meeting her for the first time, but she totally got it. We were vibing. I'm having my mimosa. I'm standing outside listening to this club music, talking to her, and I just knew right then, like, this girl is like, this is a soul sister. We're gonna have a good conversation.
And let's not forget it was noon.
I imagine like literally it was so early in the day. It was Friday. And
Yeah,
I
it was
was like, I'm just gonna
noon.
go grab some breakfast, and I kind of want a mimosa. Like, let's go. No, it was Vegas up in there. It was so
And
random.
let's not also leave out that you were wearing sunglasses inside.
I was.
And like,
Listen,
you sent me a selfie, and I was like, love you.
I was like, let me just, and they were like the Versace, like the oversized. I was like, listen, I came to match the vibes. So here we are.
I loved it.
It was amazing. That was that's the kind of meeting where you're like, this is it. Like, we're connected
Isn't
now.
it nice? I'm like, why does it need to be so serious?
It doesn't.
Like,
It's so stupid.
let's not be so serious.
Let's just have fun. God damn. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be pleasurable. It's supposed to be good. That's why I love what you do. You're a gift to the world, and I appreciate you for being here so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to link to, can you say your Instagram so just in case people don't go to show notes?
Oh, sure. It's jocelyn.kelly.reid. And then my podcast is Queen Flow the podcast.
Perfect. And we'll link to everything in case you guys can't find something or you're driving right now and you can't get down to it. We'll link to all the programs she mentioned. We will link to everything. Babes support babes. Thank you so much, my friend, for being here. I love you so much. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Love you. And I'll give you guys codes too, so you can get a little love.
Amazing. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have an amazing day, guys. We'll see you next time. And I'll share when I go on Jocelyn's pod and we'll just keep the party going.
Yay.